Sellers, stay tuned. I got a great two stats for you.
You better get fired up.
Happy Wednesday, guys. We're here with the Florida Treasure Coast Market Update, where we're talking about the current local market here, specifically in Port St. Lucie. And I'll tell you, every single Monday, I've got my staff bringing me stats on the market, and I'm going to share those stats with you here shortly. I think there's 9 or 10 different stats. And there were two that specifically stuck out, and I thought, man, this is great conversation for our Wednesday video. So I'm going to share these stats with you. Let me pull up my screen here so you can see them. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, there it is. And here we go. So let's see if we can make this a little bit bigger. How do I zoom in? Is it Shift plus? It is not. Is it Control plus? It is. Okay, let's do that again. All right, that's good. So what this is every single Monday my staff pulls numbers, all right? And they're looking at these stats. How many single family homes are currently on the market? That's active. And then she breaks them down into how many are up to 500,000 versus how many are 500,000 plus. Okay? So those two numbers, unless you've got a home priced exactly at $500,000, they should add up to the active number. So you can see here 1849 total, 1164 are up to 500 grand, 695 are over 500 grand. That's what, 1859. So that's 10 over the 1849. That means exactly 10 homes are listed at $500,000. Okay, you kind of understand that. And then we're looking at what is the median asking price. You can see it's kind of hovered right around 469 forever. Goes a little bit over, goes a little bit under, but it's right around 469. Currently is at 469. Then the next three numbers are the same things, except instead of looking at actives, homes currently being sold, we're looking at homes that were actually sold. I'm sorry. Yeah, homes being sold. We're looking at homes that have sold. And we're looking at the last 45 days. And then we, again, in rows 9 and 10, break that down into up to 500 grand and 500,000 plus. And then the next line shows us the median sales price. Okay. And then the last three rows are all inventory numbers. Inventory is looking at how many homes we've currently got on the market. If we were to sell homes at the rate we've been selling them over the last 45 days, and we didn't take on any new listings, how long would it take to sell out of all that inventory? All right. And you can see Port St. Lucie as a whole is 154 days, so just over 5 months. But when you look at up to 500 grand, it's just over 4 months. And when you look at that higher priced market of 500,000 plus, you're looking at about 7, almost 8 months. Okay. So it's two completely different markets. And you could break it down further. If I looked up to 375, I looked this up maybe 2-3 weeks ago, it was 2.7 months. That is I wouldn't say a strong, but it's certainly a seller's market. So if you've been hearing on the news, oh my gosh, it is a strong buyer's market, and you're at 350, 375, you're going to be hurting when you're putting in lowball offers and you're not winning. You're not getting them accepted because you're not aware what that spectrum of the market is doing. Whereas if you're shopping 600 to 800 grand, forget this 235. You're probably looking at close to 12, 13, 14 months of inventory. So now if you've got a $750,000 property, you may not need to come in at 750 to get it under contract. You might. It depends on the seller. Every seller is different. But having the education and knowing what a typical home is selling for, how long it's taking to sell, what the inventory levels look like is incredibly valuable for you. All right. So that's what all these numbers are. So here are the two numbers I really want to draw out. In fact, I'm going to go to a third number as well. The first one is this 1849. That's how many actives are currently on the market. And you can see we kind of peaked out here March, April, May. It was 2132, 2119, 2124. Usually that number continues to grow through maybe July, August. Okay, you can see last year, I'm only showing the first Monday of every quarter, but from January to April, it went up. From April to July, it went up. From July to October, it went up. That's not what we're seeing this year. We're seeing it come down. June was 2032, July was 1940, It hovered right around that same number for August 1943, but then it came down for the next for the next month to 1848. This is just a week later, right? Because I always open up that month until we get through the next month, then I close it up. So we're actually dropping in actives. Why do I think that is? And again, it's different for everybody. So this is just Joe's perspective of the general reason that number is coming down. I think you've got a lot of people who wanted to sell, but they were in two different categories: people who wanted to sell and people who needed to sell. And people who needed to sell are doing the things necessary. They're being aggressive on price. They're being aggressive on staging. They're being aggressive on finding a realtor who's a great negotiator and is going to market their property and everything else. And they're investing in that, and it's happening for them. And then you've got others who aren't getting professional photography, are not hiring top 10, 15% agents. They're not pricing along with the market. They're not doing the things they need to do. They're hoping and a praying, which in 2021, hoping and a praying worked. It worked, man. Everybody could be an agent, and you could successfully do it. It was a hot market. Now it's a little bit different. You've got to have everything hitting on all cylinders for you to be able to sell successfully. So what that does for you, if you're one of those serious sellers, is it takes all the non-serious sellers out of the market. You can see that as April, May, and June were just above 2,000. In fact, in April and May, let's go back to March. They were all March through May. They were all above 2,100. Now we're down to 1,849. Okay, let's just take what's the median of those three numbers. 2,124 in March minus we're currently at 1,849. That's a 275 difference divided by that 2,124. That's a 13% reduction. So for every 100 homes that were on the market in May, right, just 4 months ago, there's now 87. 13 of them are gone. And they're the 13 least motivated, overpriced. That's beautiful for sellers. You've got less competition. It's beautiful for buyers because you're not wasting your time with people who are not realistic on pricing. They're not willing to get repairs needed done, right? They're going to work with you. You got more motivated sellers. It's great for everybody. So now we look at solds, okay? You can see usually we peak out around June, July, which you can see May was 542, June was 547, July started to come down, 526. August hovered right around the same number, 529. Last Monday was 525, but then all of a sudden, boom, we got a peak. Why did it, boop? I shouldn't say a peak, a spike. Why did we get that spike? Now, I'm going to tell you in a little bit, but let's first look at what that would compare to last year. You can see 540. We're supposed to be having a rough year in sales, right? Well, in April of last year, we had 524. We're doing more than that now. It spiked, or I should say peaked. Man, I'm getting those two words confused. At 590 in July, but then in October, which we're a month away from, it was at 545. That's in what was supposedly a better year. But now we're literally 5 away from that. We're only a month away from October. So we see this jut up. Where did that come from? In my opinion, a lot of that has come from reduced mortgage rates. Rates have come down a little bit. We're seeing rates for most people. There's a million asterisks to this because there's variables involved. But we're seeing most mortgage rates in the low 6s. I'm even seeing some in the high 5s. And that is attracting a whole new buyer pool. Those people can now afford the bottom rung of homes in Port St. Lucie. And people who could afford those opening level homes and didn't like what they were looking at can now afford a tier 2 house. And they're saying, hey, these look a little bit better because the rates are lower. Even though the price is up, my monthly is the same, maybe even a little bit lower. That opens it up to a better home for the same price per month. Now I'm interested in pulling the trigger. I think that's why we're seeing more sales. So when you look at those two numbers, and this is the third number I'm going to look at, you are seeing lower inventory rates. Let's look at all year. This is the first of every month. 197 days of inventory. Shot way up to 274. Then it tapered down to 242, 183, 176, 167, 166, 165, 154. Still coming down to 158, coming down to 154. That means if you're a seller, the market is getting healthier and healthier and healthier every single month since February. That is not something I'm reading in the news. And a big reason you don't read that in the news is, number one, negative sells. If they put positive numbers out there, it just doesn't sell as much. Even in 2021, when the market was hot, they didn't talk about the hot part, right? They didn't talk about the positive part for sellers. They talked about the negative part for buyers. Now that the market has softened a little bit, they don't talk about the greatness for buyers. They talk about the negativity for sellers. It doesn't matter what the market does. They're going to talk about the negative portions because that's what attracts eyeballs. So you need to see that. I need to see that. And when you're looking at this data, depending upon whether you're a buyer, a seller, or a realtor, use data to back up your stances on different things. Use data to educate yourself, not news articles. They're always going to pitch the negative. Sometimes it's going to make you too confident about something you shouldn't be confident about, or it's going to make you too negative on something that you could be a little more positive about. So seeing that is phenomenal. Now, it's not quite what we had last year. You can see the beginning of each quarter inventory-wise was 141, 133, 124, and 142, but it's pretty doggone good. Look at that higher price, 500,000 plus. That was really getting beat up this year. At the beginning of the year, 368, 428 in February. In fact, it was over 300 until July. July, it finally came under, and then it really shot down, 265, 252, 235. And yes, that's including a $500,000 home, but that's also including a $900,000, $1 million, $1.5 million. And typically those markets always, even in a strong market, are going to move slower. Okay. So that 235, let's look at last year. January of last year, we were at 248, higher. One of the hottest times of the market, both of these two, were 220 and 234. Well, it's right around there at 235. October of last year was 254. We're at 235. The market for a $500,000 priced home or more in Port St. Lucie right now is better than it was last year. All right. I shouldn't necessarily say that. I guess we got to wait a month because they were at 254 in October. We're at 232 now. But looking at the trend, literally, yeah, since February, it's come down every single month. That market for $500,000 plus sellers has improved every single month since February. That is a good sign. That's a good sign. When you look at the lower end stuff, up to $500,000, again, peaked out in February, went from 222 to 198, 141, 136, 131, 129. Now it's hovering 132, 128, 126. 126 is the lowest we've seen it all year. We haven't seen numbers like that since 2020. What year is it? 5. So 2024. But now we're seeing them. So again, I always profess, quit listening to the news. Look at actual data, right? This is actual data from our MLS to make the decisions that you want based on data so that you can make decisions for what you're going to do and they're educated. That's what I want to help you guys and do. If I do anything through these videos, it's to create more educated buyers and sellers in this market that are making decisions that help them. I've got a buyer right now who's hearing all over the news that the market is soft. It's a buyer's market, right? So we've got homes that say $500,000. They want to come in at 400 grand. That's just not realistic. I can look up the last 100 sales in Port St. Lucie. I'm willing to bet 0 of them, maybe 1, came in $100,000 lower than asking price. So for that buyer to be successful, they've got to submit roughly 100 offers. Well, who wants their 100th favorite home? Nobody. So to educate that person, especially as a salesman, because it's going to sound like you're selling them something, the way I think you should do it, the way I would want to be sold, is I want to see data. I don't want to see your salesmanship. I don't want to hear your pitch. Show me the data. So I want you guys to take this data and I want you to become confident because you know what others don't know, because we're looking at data, not listening to emotional news stories. So guys, hopefully that was helpful. If there's anything you'd like me to look at, a specific portion of the market here in Port St. Lucie, whether it's land or whether it's condos or whether it's $1 million plus, whatever it is, let me know in the comments or by sending me a private DM on Facebook. and I'm happy to do it. We're here every single Wednesday at 11 o'clock for the Florida Treasure Coast Market Update. Guys, thanks for joining me. Have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday. Take care.